A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation: overpowered by hunger and thirst, they ran to devour Brahma from all sides and cried, "Spare him not, eat him up." Purport: the representatives of the Yakshas and Rakshasas still exist in some countries of the world. It is understood that such uncivilized men take pleasure in killing their own grandfathers and holding a love feast by roasting the bodies. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stabidam Yena Bhudale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadadi Swapadantigam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yudapadagamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunadhanidam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaidam Savadudam Parijana Sahidam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalidam Shri Vishaghanidamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupasya Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Sahana Vavadu Sahanau Bhunaktum Sagaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinamadidamattu Ma Viddushavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tatsat. Om Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Rishikeshindriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nuvurtatmane. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining this wonderful, very auspicious Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning. And we have such a wonderful opportunity to go through and understand the details, the transcendental subject matter, which purifies even whoever comes in contact with a little bit of this. So that's the perfection of our life. So we were going through this canto, third canto, and the 20th chapter, which is titled as the conversation between sage Maitreya and Mahatma Vidura. And we came up to the point of verse number 19 and 20. Just a context, the recap of it. And as we know that in the beginning of this chapter, the first two words, Shaunaka Rishi was inquiring from Sudha Goswami, what did the Swayambhuva Manu did after the hearing from the Brahma? What did Swayambhuva Manu did for the enlightenment for the future generations? So that's where the inquiry from the Shaunaka Rishi. Then Sudha Goswami was referring about the questions and by the Mahatma Vidura to the sage Maitreya. So this is a continuation of the discussions between sage Maitreya and Mahatma Vidura. So naturally, like a children sitting in the front in the classrooms and the teacher is speaking, and then definitely there are questions and the doubts and explains and about if something is already spoken, then naturally come to the point, yes, there are some doubts, and then again that the teacher is speaking that the same subject matter in great details. So this is what is this chapter also likes that the Mahatma sage Maitreya is this is a conversation between, and the sage Maitreya is explaining about the creations, primarily the creations, and that's for the benefits of the future generations. And this was based on this. The answers are based on this question: what did Swayambhuva Manu did, after that? So basically, this is all for us. This all for the future generations and the people in general, so that they can come out from their the science, their ignorance. So that's where the theme of this chapter, which goes through, and that we can see that how this is all explaining so nicely, so that we can take it in ourselves that why and what we are actually here, and why we are going through such the distress and the ignorance conditions and the darkness and all those things. So let's get into the verses. So here, in this verse, Sage Maitreya was explaining to Mahatma Vidura the creations of the Brahma, and then how this all manifested. So we can see that in the previous verses that Sage Maitreya is explaining to Mahatma Vidura regarding the appearance of Brahma. So this is the creations. So we could see that in this entire chapter. Basically, we are up to the 20th chapter, and before there are 3-4 chapters, especially mentions about the creations of the universe, the creations of this world, and the creations of the Brahma, and the ingredients and various types. And it's just very greatly explained all this. And that's where also the sage Maitreya is repeating the same and go in detail and what are the different kinds of creations by the Brahma. So that's where it came that in the previous verse it's mentioned that the Mahavishnu, the Karanodakshaya Vishnu, lies down in the Kashal ocean, and from the Kashal ocean and the ingredients for the creations manifested, and then that became as an egg, like a universal egg. Initially it was lifeless, and then Lord entered into the each elements of the ingredients, and it became life, and it's filled with the life and enlivened. And then we can see that then from that egg, that the universal egg, then Karanodakshaya Vishnu expanded himself and entered into the universe, and he's known as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And this was Sage Maitreya was speaking to Mahatma Vidura, again repeating the same which was already mentioned in the 10th chapter of this and the 12th chapter, the universal creation, the division of creations, and all those in the chapters. It's mentioned that. So this goes in detail. So here the universal egg is created, and in the Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, entered into the universe as known as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu or Hiranmaya. And then we could see that from the lotus navel of the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, the lotus sprouts, and then it's extended up to the top planetary systems. And from there, that the lotus, and from that lotus, the Brahma is manifested, from the potency of the Supreme Lord. So this was mentioned, and then Mahatma Sage Maitreya then further explaining the creations of the Brahma. So before we enter into that, there are, the Brahma's creations known as the Visarga part of it. Basically, these 10 subject matter, the first, the Sarga and Visarga. The Sarga is the creation by the Supreme Lord, or is called the Prakrita, or, Prakrita creation or Prakrita creation. And then there is also known as Vaikrita, that's creations by the Brahma. Then we can see that then also it is known as the Sarga. Sarga is the creation, and that is by the Supreme Lord or Prakrita. Or then the Visarga, that's the creation by the Brahma, that's called the Vaikrita. Then we can see that. So then Brahma's creations, before the Brahma's creations, there are Prakrita creations or natural creations. It's manifest in such a way that we all can see that in this verse, it is mentioned that out of disgust, Brahma threw off the body of ignorance. So it is, then we have to see that the previous verse, and it is mentioned that from the shadow of Brahma, the ignorance is manifested, or the coverings of the ignorance is manifested. But ignorance was already been part of the Prakrita creation, or the part of the Sarga creation. That we will get into that in a few seconds. So here, by the ignorance, by the coverings of by the shadow of the Brahma, the coverings of the ignorance is generated, it's manifested. So then, what are those coverings of the ignorances? There are 5 coverings of the ignorances, or the darkness, or the mode of ignorance is generated, that is known as the Tamisra and the Antadamisra, then Tamas, then Moha and Mahamoha. So these are the coverings of the ignorance or the darkness. So this is manifested from the shadow of Brahma. So the Tamisra, also don't confuse this with, there is also hellish names called Tamisra and Andadamisra. That's also which resembles the name of it, but that's a different subject matter of the hellish planets. Here, the coverings of the ignorance, Tamisra means anger. So the coverings of the ignorance is here, Sage Maitreya is mentioning as it came from the Brahma as the shadow of the ignorance, or the coverings of the ignorance is anger. So we know that the first sign of ignorance is actually the anger. A person is ignorant, he is always angry with everything because of he is so selfish, and he is always attached to his sensual activities, and because of that he is always anger, in the mode of anger, and then that is as a sign of or coverings of the ignorance. Then we come to the point Andada Misra. Andada Misra is the concept of death. The ignorance person, or then this thinks that the death is everything and there is nothing beyond this, and this body, the death is the end of the life. And then as he knows that the death is everything and death devours everything, okay, let me enjoy, let me put myself into this mode of this deepest darkness of the selfish enjoyment or selfish activities which devours the death. Basically, that leads to the death. There is a saying that the salary of the sin is the death. It is mentioned that the salary of the sinful activity is death. So death is called Andata Misra, the concept of death, and this is also the ignorance. So then it comes to the tamas. Tamas is called darkness in the dark. So it's mentioned that the Tamisra and the Andada Misra is actually the cause of this tamas. Tamas is actually darkness. That's literally known as tamas is darkness. And the darkness of ignorance or the bodily concepts of the life. There is no knowledge of the spiritual, or beyond these bodily concepts. That's called the tamas, or that person in the darkness. Then it comes to the moha. Moha means illusion. That he is the moha, the illusion is actually nothing but he is completely ignorant of the spiritual, understanding, and completely in the bodily conceptions of the life. That's called moha, or the illusion. And he thinks that this is everything, and this temporary nature is everything. And this is also another coverings of the ignorance or the shadow of the Brahma. Then it comes to the Mahamoha. Mahamoha means the mad attachment to this material, enjoyments. The mad attachments, or completely the Mahamoha, completely immersed into the material enjoyment. That's called the madly attached to this material enjoyment is known as Mahamoha. So these are the 5 coverings, and this is also mentioned into the 12th chapter and the second verse. In the beginning of creation, we know that Brahma created the nescience, and then along with that, these 5 difference that's exactly repeated here. That this 5 part of the nescience is ignorance, and then we could see that we went through that. Then after seeing that the ignorance, that Brahma was actually a little bit ashamed of it, and then then started to create the Kumaras in order to spread the knowledge. There's a knowledge also. Brahma created that through the Kumaras. So that we saw that. So here, then we could see that in this verse, out of disgust, Brahma threw off the body of ignorance. So this is what is exactly happened. Brahma was created the nescience and then ashamed of it. And similarly, out of disgust, Brahma threw off the body of ignorance. And then, taking this opportunity, Yakshas and Rakshasas sprang for possessions of the body, which continued to exist in the form of night. So basically, the Andhakar is considered as the tamas, is considered as the darkness is considered as the ignorance. So it is mentioned that generally the nature of this material nature is generally the tamas, the darkness. So in this world, we need to have the sun and the moon to lighten up this material world, right? The sun and the moon, because of the nature of this world is darkness. So this darkness is nothing but this manifested from the ignorance. So let us come to that point of how that is happened, how that is all came into the being. So we know that the creations. So as per the 10th chapter of this canto, it's mentioned that there are 9 kinds of creations, 9 categories of creations, or 9, the way of creation. So initially, we know that the Mahatattva, the 23 elements, which created from the body of Mahavishnu, or the ingredients of from the casual ocean, and then that is the primary, that's the first creations. First creations of this material world is which manifested from the body of the Lord Mahavishnu, or Karanodakshaya Vishnu, which is known as the Mahatattva, the elements or the ingredients for the creations of this world. Then which created, then it's another creation. This is called the Prakrita or the Sarga part of it. Then it's created, the second creation is the false ego. From this Mahatattva, then the false ego generated. False ego means ahangar, that means the sense of proprietorship, ahangar, I. So this manifested from there, and then that false ego divided into 3 modes of material nature: the goodness, sattva guna, rajo guna, and tamo guna. The quality, the guna manifested from those Mahatattva, that is the part of the the false ego. That is, a false ego is the secondary creations, second creations of the out of this 9, and then the conceptions of the sense perceptions created from this, and the sense perceptions created, and then out of this sense perceptions, then all the elements created after that from the sense perceptions, as it's mentioned that false ego. Then from the false ego, the working elements and the knowledge and the ingredients, also the material ingredients, are actually all manifested from the subsequent creation, that from the false ego. Then from sense perceptions, all the sense elements manifested. So these are the different categories of the creations. Then the fourth creation is actually the knowledge. So from the sense elements and the sense perceptions, and then the knowledge created, so that this all makes sense, that persons realize that his existence, or the concept of everything. Now, because of that, the senses, the knowledge, the manifested, or the fourth category is known as the knowledge aspects of it. Then is actually the fifth creation is actually known as the controlling deities of all these various elements, that the controlling deity, and by the contact of this controlling deity in the mode of goodness, then the mind created. So that's the fifth one, is actually the mind. So the mind is when in contact with the mode of goodness, and which is actually the results of the false ego, the 3 modes of nature, and then the mind generated. And then the sixth one is actually known as ignorance. So from this category, the ignorance is also manifested, and the goodness, the mind, the ignorance also, the created. This is called the Prakrita creation, or Prakrita, or natural creations of it. So it was there. So up to this point, this is called Sarga. Up to this point is actually the Prakrita creation, and then the Brahma is manifested. So this is, don't think that it's all suddenly happened like that. It takes years. Even the ingredients of the creations which were there lies down 1,000 celestial years as an egg, and then we could see that. So then, due course of time, is all manifested, in the creations, and it comes to that up to the 6th is actually naturally created. Then it's actually came to the creations of the Brahmas manifested, and that is from the lotus navel. We know that that's from the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then it took the years to manifest the Brahma. Then it's also further hundreds of thousands celestial years. Brahma was in the meditation, and initially there was full of darkness, nothing could see. Then we could see that there was a sound of. Then Brahma was bewildered and what to do, and that's the time in the ether Brahma could hear that tapa, and Brahma could understand that what to do, the penance. Brahma did the hundreds of years, celestial years, did the penance, and then we could see that the sage Maitreya was mentioning that Lord manifested in the heart of Brahma. So Lord manifested in the heart of Brahma. Then Brahma then did that. After that, my Lord came before the Brahma and shook hands with the Brahma, and is mentioned that, and imparted the knowledge in the Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikave, Brahma, if the Lord imparted this transcendental knowledge unto the heart of the Brahma, then we also that, those wonderful descriptions of it. Then the Brahma started to create. That's where we are seeing here. Brahma started to create. That is the seventh creations of the Brahma. That's called the Visarga or the Vaikruta creation. That's where Brahma first created the immovable objects, immovable, the living entities like the plants and the trees and the creepers and all these immovable. That it's mentioned that in the 8 types of those creations. Then Brahma created the lower species of life. The lower species of life, like the animals and the owls, and there are 28 types of those lower species of life Brahma created. Then Brahma created the ninth creation is actually on this, actually the humans. That's the Manu and Swambhu Manu and the Manu, the subjects of the descendants of Manu, this Manavas or Manus or Manushyas. These are the ninth category creation, the human. Then there is also, these are known as Vaikurda, and this is also included. Then in that creations also, Brahma created the demigods. The demigods are actually the 8 types. Demigods are actually, so there are demigods and devadas and devadevadas. That's one. And second is actually the forefathers, and that's then it creates actually the yakshas and the different other categories, kinnaras and gandharvas, the forefathers and the ghosts and even the forefathers, even the demons, the asuras, is also in the category of this the creations of the demigods, and that's where the yakshas and the rakshasas were created in this Brahma's creations. So that's where we came to this point of when Brahma threw off this ignorance. So ignorance was part of the natural creations and it was there. And then seeing this, actually, Brahma threw off this ignorance from this body. And then this is the time the opportunities, the Rakshasas and the Yakshas then ran towards to possess that body. So that's why we could see that, in different places, Srimad Bhagavad explains about that, how these are all, then there are divisions and there are different, various, different other types of ignorances manifested from these bodies. So that way, then generally we can see that this world is completely covered with this darkness or the ignorance, and that way it's continued to exist in the form of a night. So this is basically as known as the ignorance, or darkness. So generally, when we were small and we heard this one, actually, this generally says that when a person goes through such a condition, such a ignorant conditions, or like a very poverty situations or poverty-stricken situations, we used to say that it's andhakar. What kind of andhakar it is, something like that. So this all related and connected because of the ignorance of the nescience is considered as the andhaka. See, that's why it is mentioned that Krishna is Surya Saman, Maya hi andhaka. So this material nature is andhaka, is completely kind of andhaka. So that's why people are generally, mostly that in the mode of ignorance they go through and then suffering in this world. And it's mentioned that also, Sage Maitreya, night is the source of hunger and thirst. Why it is mentioned that the night is the source of hunger and thirst? Because of the ignorance which we do not know, then completely come to the bodily concepts of the life. And when we come to the bodily concepts of the life, all that in the bodily concepts of life, eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. So eating is the primary there. So why is the eating? Because we have so much of hunger, so much of the desires of to fulfill, to satisfy. And we know that the people, those who are in the mode of ignorance, they don't discriminate. They eat left and right. Whatever they get, they try to eat. And that we can see in the next 2 words here, when the Dakshas and the Rakshasas became so much of this hunger and thirst, they ran towards to eat even the Brahma. They overpowered by the hunger and thirst. Their devotees, that's another symptoms of this world. People are generally like animal consciousness. Their aim and their goal is nothing but to eat and the sleep and the mate and the defend. And this is what is the animal. This is completely ignorance. That's why this is revealing to us that what is the ignorance, what we are going through as a human. As a human, we are supposed to come to the mode of goodness or in the transcendental platform, but because of this ignorance, we are completely covered by all this, and then we are completely devoured by this great the energy of this ignorance that's called darkness. So people are completely under the darkness. As Srila Rupa Goswami says that the root cause of our suffering is ignorance, the darkness. So that's a tamasoma jyotirgamaya, that's in the Upanishad, says that the prayers of our prayers should be like that, from please, O Supreme Lord, please lead me from this tamas, from this darkness to the enlightenment. Tamasoma jyotirgamaya. So the light, the enlightenment, that is Krishna. So only by the constant association of the devotees and the Krishna consciousness, only that we can come out of this, the default or the natural ignorance. So otherwise we'll be naturally fall into this ignorance. So then we completely, our urges, this completely, we have so much of urges and rush to all this, in order to satisfy our bodily, the hunger and the thirst and overpower. And that's what is generally happens. People are generally leaving to eat. I mean, we can see that people are leaving, to eat nothing but in this world to enjoy the taste of the tongue. So then they ran towards to eat Brahma, and they cried and eat him, spare not him, eat him up. So this, why it is mentioned that because of this all happens because of the ignorance, and ignorance create the people very mad. That's why this moha and the mahamoha is all the different aspects of this ignorance. So dear devotees, this is very, very important to understand the details of this. And what we what we can take from all these words is actually we are understanding that the nature of this world and nature of our existence, nature of our the by default nature of all of us. By default nature, we are all ignorant in this material world. Basically, the material world is the tamasa, or the ignorance of the darkest region. But by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, we can come out of this darkness or the ignorance, and then we can enlighten ourselves by understanding this transcendental knowledge. So that's what is exactly that the question of the Shaunaka Rishi, what did Swayambhuvamanu did to enlighten for the future generations. So this is what it is. So we have to take it. And the nature of this world is nothing but the darkness. But we are the Krishna conscious entities by nature. We are eternal, Satchidananda, the eternal and the full of knowledge and the full of potency and the blissfulness. So that's our original Krishna conscious nature, eternal nature. But we are covered by this, by the contact of this material energy. So we have to come to our original consciousness, original nature. So that's what is we need to take away from these all verses, and always keep in our heart, our nature is eternal. So with this note, I would end here. Thank you so much for being there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Over to Madhuri Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Madhuri Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Very well. Thank you, Simheswara. I'd like to wish everybody a safe and Krishna conscious day ahead. And we'd like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Radesha, Jai Padma Ugraviram Tam Sarvam Nrsimham Vishnu Padmanam Sangha Bhagwan ki Jai, Maharaj ki Jai. Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the Simul Vaishnavas, Vanchakal Patarukas, Vaishnavinda ki Jai, Bhagavatam ki Jai, Prabhupada ki Jai, or Pemanande.
Thank you, Simheswara Prabhuji.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.